What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on the Routine Revenue Podcast. Today we have David Doty. For those of you that are familiar with Utah and Lehi Bakery, he acquired Lehi Bakery just 5 years ago and has successfully grown it from $800,000 a year in revenue to over $3 million a year in revenue. They're iconic for their amazing square donuts and are actually opening a few more locations here in the near future. Some of the stuff we talk about is what it is like to actually acquire something in the food and beverage space. And David bought himself a job. Much like the content you see out there, it was not easy in the early days because he was in the donut shop making donuts at 1 o'clock in the morning and trying to figure out how to scale himself out of that role. And he had a unique circumstance that forced him to start to think beyond himself and how to build systems and process in order to scale himself out of that role. It's a great listen for those of you that are looking to buy something maybe a little bit smaller or can't afford a multi-million-dollar business, and what he's done to be able to take that small business and now build a portfolio of multiple food and beverage opportunities to up to 20 million in revenue. So excited to have you here. If you would like and subscribe, I'd be incredibly grateful on the podcast as well on YouTube. Otherwise, looking forward to diving in. All right, David, thanks so much for joining us today. Excited to dive in your story. You've explored and made some acquisitions in a space that I would probably never buy in. So I'm really excited to dive into the space of food and beverage and what that's like. Why don't you start? Let's love to hear your background and how you got into some of these acquisitions.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So food and beverage is a different space, and some space a lot of people, will say they don't want to 10-foot pole. It's a space that I've come to love, and I think it kind of starts back. I got my first job when I was 16, and my mom took me out of the house, and I started washing dishes at Denny's, 20 hours a week because she wanted me to get a job and to learn what it was like. And so in blue collar Pittsburgh, that's how I got my start. And a dishwasher, then a host, and then ultimately did some serving, and just felt very at home for me. Well, my professional path started to take a different course. I think like a lot of people, you look back and you say, oh, that was a good first job, or that was a stepping stone to help me understand maybe a little bit of what working life was like. So out of college, I started working on Wall Street. So I was an equity trader at JP Morgan for 5 years, trading stocks in the middle of the financial crisis on behalf of all the largest hedge funds and mutual funds in the world. So kind of went from little dishwasher Dave Doty to at one point having Jamie Dimon stand behind me as we raised the TARP funds during the financial crisis. So just some ways just felt like 0 to 60 really fast. Did some more banking after that, a little private equity, then went to law school and got my MBA down at BYU. And at that point, I acquired my first small business while I was in graduate school. It was a little frozen yogurt store. But was getting recruited to go into big corporate jobs out of it, my MBA and law school. So we went, the CFO of Hanes, the underwear clothing company. He recruited me out to North Carolina, and I guess I felt like it was really hard to say no to a Fortune 500 CFO. So took that job, and all the while had this, first store 2,000 miles away, and was getting calls from people about it, struggling and having a hard time. And I had to make a choice. I was at a crossroads. Do I stay in this corporate path that I want to go on, or do I want to kind of grow and expand within food and beverage? And I was just sitting there one day in North Carolina, and it's just so corporate environment. And we just made the call and said, I want something more dynamic. So I left the corporate world behind and came out here back to Utah, and have since grown, from that little $400,000 frozen yogurt store into what should be almost a $20 million revenue company this year.
Wow, that's incredible. Maybe I want to go back to just maybe that first acquisition, because if I understand correctly, you were still in school when you made the frozen yogurt acquisition, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So because my family had moved a couple times with a growing family, we had a couple of different rental houses, and I was looking on the MLS for yet another rental house just to acquire. Anyway, it came across this listing. It's weird in small business because we don't have an MLS for small businesses. They're listed on broker websites. There's a couple, classified sections or biz by sale. And so it's really fragmented and hard to know what's for sale. Anyways, I'm looking on the MLS and I see this building and I'm like, is this building really for sale for that much? I called the broker. He's like, no, 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 no. I'm using the MLS as another platform to list this business that I'm trying to sell for the owner. And I had never even considered buying a small business, but I said, "Oh, just send me the financials just because I was curious." And after I dove into those, it was a business that was a mile from my house. I said, all right, well, let's give it a shot. I mean, I'm in school learning about running a business in all these different ways, marketing and HR and all that stuff. Let's actually put it to use. So we bought our first business. We had, you know, mostly 16-year-old kids working there, a manager or two. And it wasn't that, I mean, it was probably the easiest small business to buy. It was an existing business with experienced managers, a set of kids working there. We're not talking like a fine dining steakhouse. We're talking a frozen yogurt business that was like, pour the stuff in the back of the machine. The customer serves themselves. And, you have a kid at the register hitting the button, telling them what the total is. So it was super easy from an operational standpoint to get up to speed. It was just the hard part was if you've never run payroll before, you just don't know the questions to ask. Like, oh, I need to have these insurances and do I get a payroll department? Like, what do I do? And so that was, I wouldn't say hard. It just, if you've never done it before, you just have to get in there and understand all these small little aspects that after you do it once or twice, it's a lot easier.
You're actually the second person this week I've talked to with the exact same strategy, whether you intended it or not, which was you went out to buy a physical asset, a building, and it turned out to be a small business that they ended up purchasing, or they purchased the whole asset and 1/3 of the spaces was the small business that got rolled into it. I'm so curious, how was it valued? Was it valued as you were buying the building and the asset just came with it? And how did you kind of separate those out?
So the building actually wasn't even part of the deal. I mean, the building was owned by a national REIT, right? So he was literally just posting it on the MLS to hopefully generate a lead for someone that was like, oh, I guess I'd be curious in the business too. So his strategy works because I ended up buying the business. So in terms of valuing it, what was hard for me is I'd come from a corporate finance background, and valuing a small business is a lot different than valuing Microsoft.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think at that point I had my CFA charter. So, for those that don't know, CFA charter is essentially you have an accountant, they get their CPA. It's like kind of like you passed the boards. In finance, it's the same thing. A lot of times, like Wall Street analysts will have their CFA. So I had my CFA. I could value a business and get through the financials fine. That was my background. What I didn't really understand is at that point, I was familiar with Microsoft multiples and public company multiples. Well, now I know much better that the multiple that you pay for a small business is much lower than you would pay for a public company. So when I was looking at it the first time, I cannot believe they're selling it at this multiple. This is a screaming deal, right? It actually ended up just being a market multiple, and it was a fair deal. But now I'm constantly looking at deals all the time just to assess the market and what kind of multiples people want or expect on things in my sector, right? Does it matter how many locations you have or what the EBITDA level is? Like what impacts and influences, what causes the multiple to be where it's at. Now I know there's just these multiple levers of size, cash flow, is how much owner involvement does it require? So when you're doing your first deal, I tell this to people a lot of the time. I think everyone's so excited for their first deal because they want to they're so eager just to get started owning and operating a business that sometimes they fly through the due diligence way too fast and overpay or miss a key part. I'm just very grateful that my first experience, thankfully, that didn't happen to me. That was more out of luck instead of actually me being really seasoned and able and ready. I dove in too quickly, but thankfully I didn't get burned. Unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of people that have uh, done the same thing I did, but unfortunately it was actually, there were major consequences to it.
Um, maybe I want to come back to that. Could you talk through, let's talk through some of the acquisitions you made. I think you made a few specifically last year. And then would love to hear your perspective on what you're looking for in a food and beverage acquisition. I think that's it's kind of the first thing that one of the first small businesses that come to mind for people when they go to look at small business to acquire. But I think there's a lot of stigma around it, around what good looks like. And yeah, I don't have any familiarity with it. And so I'd be really curious to hear what needs to check the boxes in order for you to actually pursue and start doing some due diligence on a deal.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, helpful to put this in context of my background. My background is not as a chef, as a, as a someone who's worked in a kitchen for 20 years. My background is very commercial and institutional. And as time goes on, I'm developing more expertise, but that's the perspective I'm coming from. We acquired Maggleby's last year. It wasn't that I had this different skill set I want to bring in and spice up the menu or do something different. What I've come to realize my skill set is I can come into an existing business. Our two acquisitions we've done and one that we're closing on in the next 8 weeks. They're all 30 to 50-year-old brands. So what I'm stepping into is established customer bases, established teams, financials that I can look at from a P&L, from the sales line all the way to the bottom. And my skill set is coming in and tweaking those, right? How can I make this line item a little bit better to ultimately magnify the bottom line? So what I look for now is seasoned, established businesses. I know that my skill set is not going to be starting, David's pizza joint from scratch. It's not my skill set. So knowing what your strengths are is really important. And because now I'm stretched across multiple concepts, what I currently look for is teams that are super established, so that I can come in, and I actually have some people on our corporate team too. And I say, I can use these teams to come in and do it, because what I can't do now is kind of what I did at the beginning. I worked in that frozen yogurt store multiple times a week to learn it. We bought Lehi Bakery. I was in there 5 or 6 days a week for 10 to 12 hours a day. I tell people I couldn't make a Betty Crocker cupcake at home. I still don't know why the bank gave me that loan, but they did to buy it. So what I've come to value, especially from my outset, was getting in and getting my hands dirty and trying to learn it, because I've got so many insights from working in the day-to-day business on how to operate it better, how to order better, how to schedule better. I got that from getting my hands dirty. At this point, I can't get it. I can't get into the business in the way that I used to and commit the way I used to. Because at the beginning, it was like all the eggs were in that basket. Like my family wasn't going to eat if that Lehi Bakery didn't make us money. So, but now we're just looking for and happy to pay even possibly a higher multiple for business that's not going to require me to get in and work in the kitchen and to cater on events and do stuff like that. So we're looking for, I don't want to say turnkey, but established turnkey business with great brands that we can take the brand and take it to the next level.
And what does that look like? I mean, does that mean that an operator has taken that brand, they've grown it sufficiently that they have a general manager that's running day to day, and the operator has stepped away? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So it helps their example. Like at the Lehi Bakery, that was a family business for 49 years. Father sold to the son, and the son ran it every day. If Brent wasn't there to make the donuts, the place didn't open.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So looking back, I probably would not buy Lehi Bakery today, just based on where we are in our process, because I'm now stretched between three concepts. that all require a little bit here, a little bit there. But for someone at that point in time in 2018, when I was like willing to ditch the corporate and be all in on a concept, that actually turned out to be a great thing because I had to get in there and run it day to day. And I had to, and I think that's why we bought it for such a low multiple, was because it was owner operated. Sometimes they'll use this phrase. It's like, you're buying a job. I bought a job. But what we did over the next 2 or 3 years was a complete transformation of how that bakery operated. I look back now, when you zoom out, you can get a little bit more perspective, but like on day one, there was no recipe book. Everything that was made there was made by one person. And it was like touch and feel. And does this look right? And I'm like, Brett, I can't do that. I need a recipe book. And then he said, okay, well, here's a scale. He took out a scale, a 70-year-old scale that with like the weights and like a little bell in the middle and the weights on the side. I'm like, cut a digital scale. We weighed everything. And over time, we built the recipe book. And then a gentleman from a company called Jolt came in and he's like, what struggles are you having? I'm like, well, every day I come in, I'm coming in at 1 a.m. I'm putting this there, all this stuff because our closing isn't happening the way I want. He's like, dude, I can fix that for you. So then we started to build our operational systems out where now every single day, if you go into Lehi Bakery at 7 at night, everything's perfectly clean, organized by color in the right spot. So there's just like these little steps and phases that we had to work through. It's when you're going through it, it feels like forever. But now when I zoom out, we've just built these frameworks and it all happened in the right order and correctly over time. And I mean, that's bled through to the business just running better. I mean, so we bought a bakery with, I think it was running about $850 a year in revenue. And it's like this year is looking like it's going to be closer to $3 million. That's a lot of growth for a brick and mortar 50-year-old established business to grow over 200% in a matter of 5 years. So,
it's incredible.
So, I mean, people want to, like, if you had not been to Lehi Main Street over 5 years, you come and say, what the heck happened? And this is amazing. What they didn't see was, I mean, I get worried. I have people that call me and say they want to do it because I think they see our new building on Main Street and it's brand new, beautiful building.
Yeah.
But what they didn't see is the 1 a.m. mornings, the struggling through weeks of recipe refinement to get it just right every single time, and the building the systems. So in our industry, I mean, at least for me in getting our start, it's all these little aspects, and it's, I mean, it was really, really hard work to get done, and it's blue collar work. And just maybe with my upbringing, it was something I wasn't afraid of because, I grew up in a really blue collar family. So,
Yeah. I actually love this concept. And I think I share the same thesis in general, which is around the fact that like the small few acquisitions I've made, I recognize that there's still heavy owner involvement. They're small, but ultimately it was at a price point where I felt comfortable and could buy within. But to your point, and it gives me a lot of confidence that there is light at the end of some tunnel here, which is like, if we can put some systems and we can build better processes around this, I might have to reinvest all of the capital and net into the business to do that. But ultimately it will grow to the point where, it does 3 million a year in 5 years. And I think I love hearing that story. It gives me a little bit more confidence where I'm in the thick of it. I'm still baking donuts at 1 a.m. right now in my business. And it's a grind, man. And I think that's really scary for people. When you mentioned like you buy yourself a job, that's the content that's out there. And that is reality. I think I like to view it as you're either going to grind for another company or you're going to do it for your own business. And what I've come to is I'd rather do it for myself.
So the thing for me is I get calls from a lot of students, undergrad and grad students, and they want to put these generic numbers on. They're like, I want to buy a company between $1 and $2 million EBITDA in this sector, in this area. And I'm like, first off, it's gonna be hard to find that. And even if you do, maybe owner doesn't want to sell. Um,
Yeah.
just honestly, my reality at that point in time in 2018 was I was working. I mean, it was a post MBA job. I mean, I'm not scared to share it. I was making like $120,000 a year. And when I saw the bakery listing come for sale, I mean, I knew I was going to triple my income right away. And if it meant doing the dirty work, I was willing to do the dirty work for my family,
Yeah.
right? So I was really put that pride aside and get away from the lush, Haynes office in Winston-Salem, and it was beautiful. And so if I bought myself a job, I bought myself a job, and that's what my family, they all supported me, and it was hard. It was hard not sleeping. Put on 50 pounds, not because I was eating donuts all the time, just because I wasn't sleeping. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, the great thing, I think the other part is best thing that ever happened to me at that bakery was about 2 years in, I just got into this mode, grind, 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 grind. It was a rainy day, and because our building was so crusty, we didn't have gutters on it. It was a Saturday. I was going to deliver donuts to somebody. I step out the back door, and this metal thing with water all on it. Broke my ankle walking out the back door. Just twisted my whole leg up. Um, and it was seriously the most impactful thing that ever happened, because it was at that time and that following day or two, I just realized I just can't grind and grind and grind forever. I truly think there was divine intervention in saying, David, you got to stop, because you have to rethink the way that you run this business.
Mm.
And so my wife patched it for like the 2 months that I was out and couldn't do anything, but it forced me to look out and hire people that fill in my spot, changed my role from being the day-to-day grinder into being the person that's giving some other direction. And so for the past 3 years, I've had literally the best. She started as a normal baker. Now she's not just managing the Lehi Bakery. She's going to be managing all of our locations. I found literally the best general manager. Like, I've worked on Wall Street, I've gone to law school. There's Whitney, and then there's like 10 miles, and then there's like the next person I've ever worked with. She's that great. So, and it's just now I focus on the people, because as much as I have systems and machines and stuff, people operate my business in food, right? I was in New Zealand. There's a little robot coming out, serving us the food and whatever. There's going to be little things that in our industry are going to change over time. But at the end of the day, it's going to be people that connect with our customers and give hospitality, people that, at least for the foreseeable future, are mixing and baking and testing and, making sure that the product's right every time. So, um, you know, there's a huge focus on systems. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, my people operate the systems, and, you know, I, I'm not, I take some pride in saying that my top 3 people now at the bakery make more than the entire staff when we bought it 5 years ago. And I take a lot of pride in that, because, they allow me to do other stuff I'm interested in, and step away from the grind. And so they're all super special to me.
Yeah. I'd love to hear, I'd love to maybe talk through that transition a little bit. I mean, I'm in the thick of that right now, which is how do we start to potentially burn down a little capital, but make the investment of bringing people in to start to scale and allow me to take a step back and focus on running the business as opposed to being in the business, making the donuts day to day. What went into that, and what did that time frame kind of look like for you?
Yeah. I was essentially forced to, because I couldn't do it anymore with my ankle.
Mm.
But if you want me to be perfectly honest, I mean, we also gotten a point in my marriage where I was working so hard and struggling for sleep that it had gotten to a point where it was like, you have to change the way you do this, because, the family's suffering. So in some ways I was forced. It wasn't like totally like I had a plan and a process to get out of there. We kind of forced in a way. It was something that I look back now, I'm grateful on. But I think I see a lot of businesses, this is the case, where you need to hire that great person that can allow you to do other things. but the budget's not there to do it. Right. And
Yeah.
so I talked to a couple other owners and even different industries. It's like, it's like, what do they call it? It's like catch-22 or it's circular. It's like, I want to hire the great person, but I don't have the money to do it. And if I do it, then there's no money left over. And my family needs the money or we need the money. So, um, ultimately I was grateful. I had somebody that we brought in, as, a regular everyday baker that I've just been able to grow into that position. And honestly, that's, that's been the best. It also has been nice from an operational standpoint that I have somebody that has mopped the floors, that has baked at 1 a.m, that's done all that work. I've really struggled to bring in somebody and just apply the title manager to them right away. And they haven't done the low level work from the bottom up. My biggest success has been seeing the people that have come in at the base, at the base level, and we've been able to grow them. So much as people can do that and find somebody that's hungry and ambitious. I mean, Whitney for the last 3 years keeps telling me to overload her, give her more, give her more, give her more.
That's great.
Because she's seen the vision for the bakery and she's known and seen that I have been willing to do that. She's wanted the responsibility and the growth. And she's actually almost rejected some of the pay raises I've tried to give her. She's like so humble and doesn't feel like she's like, oh, David, I don't deserve that. I'm like, no, believe me, you're actually worth 3 times this. So please take it. So as
Yeah.
much as people can find people that are hungry and can understand your vision and your story, I think that's a great way to help you do it cost effective in the beginning without putting all your eggs in this basket of someone who you hope can do the work, but hasn't actually done it yet.
Um, I'd love to maybe switch gears a little bit. You've taken 5 years, taking the bakery from 800K to 3 million. What does that look like for a bakery? That's hard for me to even kind of fathom. Like, how do you produce more donuts and single location? Obviously, your opening location, the new building's incredible. It looks so great. If you haven't been to Lehi Bakery yet, luckily most of the audience is probably here in Salt Lake. I'm sure everybody knows it's an iconic brand. Um, how do you go from 800K to 3 million in 5 years with a bakery?
So there's multiple stages to it. The first stage was they suppressed a lot of volume. The old owners could have done more, but everything was manual and they were in their 60s. They were tired. So
Mm.
we actually have on the wall in the bakery, if you come in on the left side, you'll see a little museum case looking like thing of the square donut cutter that he found at a garage sale in 1980. So this little 2-hand little rolling donut cutter. After a year, I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was like crying like a baby because I was getting like some really bad carpal tunnel. I called up my equipment guy. I'm like, I need you to help me with something because I can't do this anymore. He said, I got a machine for you. It's going to cost as much as a new BMW, but it'll save your life. I said, just buy it. Get it in. So we've upgraded. First, we started saying yes to orders that the old owners would say no to. I mean, there was, as they say, low hanging fruit. There was that. Then there was, okay, on Saturday, we traditionally would make, I don't know, we'll call it like 2,000 square donuts. They'd be out by 11 o'clock and they'd be totally fine with it. I say, no, I want to break the system. I want to push it as far as it can go until people come in at 4 o'clock on a Saturday and or they don't come in enough and we're throwing it away. That's where I want to get to. So it's just, honestly, the first leg of it was just supply and demand, saying yes and making more.
Mm.
And then this is the part that I still can't grasp. And at some point, I'm sure I'll understand it. My marketing budget is $0. I literally don't spend a single penny. And I tell my front of house people, the best marketing we can do is when a customer comes in, you talk with them, you interact with them. If it's a old lady, walk her to her car with her donuts, take them out, right? And so
Mhm.
it's literally just the fundamentals of like, what am I going to do? Go invest in ads in magazines and all this stuff when really the best marketing I can do is the customer experience when they come in and giving them a great product, great service. And that has led, I think, to the rest of that growth. Has just been literally doing the basics. And so it's
Mm.
gotten to the point now again where I'm like, guys, keep trying to break it. And like, we got a 1-star review on Monday of this week because we were out of Square Donuts at 2:30 in the afternoon when a customer came by. And I'm like, well, if that's what I'm going to get a 1-star review for, like I can live with it. I mean,
Uh,
so we're at 4, like, not that it's end all be all, but like we take some pride in our reviews. We're at like 4.8 stars. And I'm hoping that people understand it's like, we have a commitment to quality product, quality service. When you come in, it's going to be a beautiful experience. And so when we open this new bakery in hopefully 10 days over here in Saratoga Springs, I mean, it's going to be the same feel and the same quality product. And the day when I can't replicate that is the day that we're going to stop expanding the brand. Always, I never want to dumb down the quality. I never want to dumb down the service and the experience.
yeah. I'm curious on the, you talk about the previous owner was turning away deals. I imagine, did you recognize that in due diligence, and how did you kind of surface what potential upside there was in just deals that he was simply turning away due to volume or, the ability to service those?
So our acquisition timeline on that was like 4 months. It took way longer than I wanted or the bank wanted. I don't know if they were like doing, like, there was a point where I actually had to get blood work for life insurance in case the loan failed, like that they would be paid off first, the bank, instead of, our family. So it was a really long process. It was our first acquisition. We were actually undercapitalized. We needed a second loan beyond the SBA to even make the purchase. Again, I seriously don't know why they would lend to me other than just feeling like maybe this guy will make it work. But during that 4-month process, I visited the business countless times as a customer again, in the morning, how busy is it? Afternoon, what's there? What products do they still make? And I mean, anyone down here in Northern Utah County that has come by the bakery or did 5-6 years ago, it was like a thing. Why would you go to the bakery after 11 o'clock? They don't have anything.
Yeah.
So it took a while to kind of change that. And we're still struggling to keep up with the demands at times because scared of pushing it too far. Like last year we grew 35% and this year's tracking at 38% still.
Wow.
So I get scared of like pushing it too far and filling up that dumpster too much. But actually we donate all our leftovers, but just, I just don't want to. It's you're trying to keep the cart up with the horse, but it's
Right.
don't get it out of order. We're doing our best, but it's a struggle. So, but they knew that they knew they underproduced, and that it was an opportunity for them to grow. They just were debt free, had savings, and
Yeah.
their desire, being in their 60s, was just like, let's just do what we need to do to keep it open until someone else can buy it.
Yeah. How do you think about that in terms of growth? I mean, obviously it's a fine line on, um, adding top line to the business, and reinvesting capital, but that seems scary to me, right? Like you go through it in real time and wonder, okay, if we go to this next stage, can we sustain that? And how do you
Yeah.
think through that? And I'd love your perspective. I feel like you're more of a finance,
Yeah.
mind on that.
Our main focus first 2 years was paying off the business. So while
Mm.
simultaneously upgrading our equipment, it was a two-pronged thing. Our family lived way beneath our means of what we were able to do, still kind of do. We paid off the building, paid off the business, while also reinvesting in better equipment, like new ovens and new refrigeration, and new machinery. And we still do that. So not that we need to get into the finance side too much, but like we had our best year of operating cash flow last year across all of our brands. But from a taxable side, I had a $900 tax bill because we just
Wow.
have, for us, as we're growing, we have every single possible deduction. I mean, as we
Right.
reinvest in it, we depreciate that. We buy businesses with goodwill. We amortize the goodwill. We own the real estate at a lot of places, so we get the tax benefits of owning real estate. So, we've continued to reinvest because we know at any point in time, I can literally go and just turn off the spigot and we just cash flow, just have tremendous cash flow.
Right.
But I guess it comes back to maybe the core of me and why we do what we do, which I haven't even touched on yet. It's been a lot about the money and the growth, and that's all fun. I love the challenges that come with that. But for me, the purpose of what we do uh, comes back to like my mom growing up in Pittsburgh, being so poor when she was a little kid. They called her poor Patty. She had dirt floors in her house. That's how poor they were. But when she went to get a job in the medical field, there was a doctor that kind of saw her and saw her potential and gave her an opportunity to the point where she eventually became the chairwoman of like a national sonographer, for pregnant ladies organization with a high school diploma. Right. And so I kind of look at in my industry, I'm sure you can imagine a lot of people that just graduated high school, or people that in an industry, sometimes, let's be honest, we can look down upon a little bit and don't see a great career path. My purpose is to give these people opportunity to grow and have a good life. So we offer benefits. We don't have to pay time off, 401k. I pay a healthcare stipend for anybody that needs healthcare. And that's the purpose of what I do. And so I'm growing at this point. I'm growing to give everybody that wants it growth opportunities. Whitney from $16 an hour to 6 figures. Caitlin came in and it's the same trajectory she's on. My guy, Jeff here, that's opening our store here in a couple of weeks. Jeff's been with me for 3 years. Came in as a $12 an hour donut fryer. And it's in 10 days, that's going to be something powerful for me is, just seeing his growth and giving him opportunities that I don't know if he ever thought he would have. And just to know that, Jeff, you're 3 years and what could be a 30-year growing career for you, right? So people that want to come in and do the hard work, the same way that my mom did. And, that's why I do what I do. Growth, money, and that's all super cool. But for me, it's like something deeper. And I have 2 days a year where I just want to like throw up my hands and say, just screw it, sell it all. Let's go buy a little place in Florida. Like I'm human like everybody else, but that next day I wake up, get through a hard day or two, and just you're reminded of why you do what we do. And that's like the underlying power behind it.
I love that. I love the mission behind it too. I mean, it's to your point, it's an industry that I think it's not a sexy industry, and it's kind of a stepping stone for so many people, right? Like they get a job making donuts and they move on to the next thing. And in reality, you're taking what is kind of viewed as that and can start to up level that. And which I believe in tremendously of like, there's so many businesses like this that if they're run correctly and can give a little bit of growth, it gives opportunity for so many people that maybe wouldn't have had it previously to expand their career and have opportunities to run businesses and things like that. So I think with that said, like, what does that look like? You're going to continue to make acquisitions in the future. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on what that looks like for Kensington management and, what could potential opportunities look like for people joining the portfolio now?
Yeah. So we're in the midst of doing an acquisition now. It should be done in the next couple of months. And then I think at that point, I might hit pause for a second. Again, if I zoom out, I'm like 3 different brands that I want to grow in a tremendous way over a 5-year period. I don't want the growth to outpace our foundation, right? Foundation of systems, the foundation of people. Like, so it might be growth and then we consolidate for a couple of years, right? Let's make sure everything has a super solid foundation for the next phase. So I think after this acquisition, in the next couple of months, we're just going to do a consolidation, make sure our debt load is not, because when we acquire properties, we're not paying cash for them. We're getting mortgages doing that. So we might do a period of financial consolidation where we used to say, let's get the balance sheet super healthy, maybe pay off some of the real estate or get it to extremely low loan to values, so that we feel really ready. Because one of our core values for us is like financial stability. So we're always monitoring our margins, our food costs, our labor costs, we're always trying to acquire great assets, not just brand, but real estate. Um, and so I think in 10 years, like my goal in 10 years, which is going to sound crazy to some people, but by the time those Olympics come here to Utah, I want there to be 50 bakeries from Boise to Dallas.
Yeah.
Uh, and where we can own the real estate, get there, but that's going to take real intentionality. That's going to come one city council meeting at a time to get there. And so within each of our brands, we have different goals. At Maggleby's, I think if we get that to a 6 to 10 unit Utah brand, that's where we want to be. I feel like for me and what I'm most passionate about, sorry, some people say they don't have a favorite kid. And I'm like, yes, you do. For me, the bakery, because I put that blood, sweat, and tears in, like, that's my favorite kid currently because I did all that hard work, right? And I'm most invested in that's my longest tenure, most work I put in. That kid of mine, I'm hoping to grow that one. I think it has legs to go beyond just Lehi Main Street. And that's something we're going to test and figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe for people that are kind of newer to the acquisition space or want to explore that, I mean, you have obviously a wealth of experience now, but if you could rewind to David acquiring the yogurt shop, is there one or two things that you did specifically to maybe expand your network or start to learn how to do this and what good looks like that you can replicate in this industry? Anything specific that you'd recommend?
Oh gosh. There's a couple, I touched on a couple things, a long-term brand's important to me. It doesn't mean you can't buy a place that's been open a year and struggling and you could buy it for pieces and revive it and make it, great. I'd have a little checklist. Again, it would start with brand strength, opportunity, like where do you see your skills fitting into that and taking that to the next level? There's other parts of it. I mean, speaking with someone last week and there was a one-off place that was 50 miles from home. And I was like, what's the vision for that? Do you want to do a little roll-up strategy within that franchise group? Like, it just seemed like one-off and there was really no system. And that's what I did at first, right? I bought my first business and there was no real plan. I just was eager to get my hands dirty. I think the part for me that's important, just starting, I've gotten to call a lot of people that just want to buy a business and think that they're just going to hire out the management side of it. I always advise them against it because my path to success has been extremely hands-on. Do you need to be as crazy as I was and go in at one more do stuff? Probably not that extreme. That was just the only way that I knew that my family was going to make it through it. So proximity to home, I mean, I'm high touch. I would advise anybody, especially in food and beverage, first acquisition, you want to be there. You want to see it. You want to know every single person's name that works in that restaurant. And it's hard for me now with like 350 people that I don't know everyone's name, but I know 80% of them. And I think that makes a difference in terms of how they treat customers and how they make the food, because at some point I'm going to outgrow that, right? Like we can't continue to grow at this pace and I know everybody, but I'm hoping my managers underneath me treat the human element the same way I do. So if they can get into food and beverage and give it that care and that passion with a great brand, even if you're buying it from a 50-year-old family, our customers in food want to know that the owner cares about the service product. They just do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great feedback. David, this has been fun. I love your story. I love the vision of what you're building. I love the chance to give people opportunities to grow and scale their career in an industry that's typically not, it's not looked at as an opportunity to really expand careers. As we wrap up, is there anywhere or any place you recommend if people want to get in touch with you or continue to learn from you? Where's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So in LinkedIn, I try to write something maybe every couple of weeks that's hopefully insightful. But I love, people that are looking into the space. I'm always happy to meet for lunch or to give some feedback on a deal. And um, probably too much, my wife says, that I'm willing to meet with random people, but I love it so much. And I want to make sure people don't make big mistakes, or I can give them like the honest, real experience that I've had and not sugarcoat it, because we've made a lot of mistakes too. So I love passing those on to other people.
Awesome. David, thank you so much for taking the time, and hopefully everyone will visit the new location opening Saratoga Springs a couple weeks out. We'll get this to go live at the same time. We'll see if we could drive any traffic there for you and sell some more square donuts.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you.
Thanks, David.